Okay, this is a special open meeting of the Board of Directors of 3rd Laguna Hills Mutual. Today is Monday, August 17th, 2026, 1:43 in the afternoon. And let's see, purpose of the meeting is to review version 3 of the proposed 2027 business plan of 3rd Laguna Hills Mutual in accordance with Civil Code Section 4930 and was hereby noticed in accordance with Civil Code Section 4920. And do we have anybody from the media here? There being none, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Johnny.
Okay,
Johnny
Mark.
come lately. Reza? Make it up for last time. Reza, motion. Donna, the second. All in favor, all opposed? Motion passes. Chair remarks, I have none. Open forum. This is the moment when anybody has up to 3 minutes to speak on anything that they'd like to. Do we have any speakers? Do we have any speakers?
No?
Do you catch her name? Okay. They're going to wait till the presentation's given and then they'll make their comment.
Oh, really? Okay. That's it for the open forum, and as such, we have no responses, so let's review the proposed budget.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon to the board and everybody who is tuning in today on TV6. We are here, if I can have you jump to the presentation screen, please. We're here to discuss version 3 of the 2027 business plan. We're pulling it up on the screen now. And then on the next slide here, we're going to take a quick peek at the budget. The calendar for the budget. We have seen this before, so I'll move through this fairly quickly. And then for those of you tuning in on Channel 6 that are learning for maybe the first time on how the budget process works, we will discuss it in a couple later slides. But as you can see, back in February and March, we started committee reviews for the budget. Ultimately, version 3 was developed and began in May. And then version 2 was distributed to the board for review July 2nd. And then now we are here today to review version 3 of the 2027 business plan, which will be up for the approval at the 3rd regular board meeting on September 15th. So at this time, I would like to pass this to Siobhan, our CEO, for her remarks.
I just wanted to take a moment and thank the board for their thoughtful input in the budget as we work through the different versions of the budget, and simply thank you for your engagement. I think we've had some very good discussions and look forward to having Blake present the rest of the budget.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Here on your screens, you'll see a table here that illustrates the 3 major changes that are affecting the 2027 business plan. So starting in the 2026 column, you'll see the current amount that you pay. This is 3rd specific. This doesn't include the GRF portion. That is $647.67. In version 3, it is proposed at $679.84 per man or per month, which reflects an increase of $32.17. If you look just slightly beneath that, you'll see the 3 major changes being utilities, that's $11.16, reserve fund contributions, $10.99 per man or per month, and restricted fund contributions at $8.31 per man or per month. So that $30.46 of those 3 major changes account for 94% of the total increase going into 2027. And as you know, at Laguna Woods, business planning is an iterative process. One of the changes we want to highlight is early engagement of committees, allowing for further and earlier discussion about items important to the committees. The budgeting process is conducted by each department head inputting individual account line items for each of the work centers that they have responsibility over. The department head reviews trends, considers contracts, and evaluates necessary staffing to ensure service levels are met. Each department head meets with the CEO, finance, and HR to justify staffing levels. Once the department heads are finished with their budgets, reports are compiled. The CEO meets again with finance and each individual department head to review the budget and suggest changes or revisions that allow great service while maintaining reasonable assessments. All of this led to version 1, or the starting point of the 2027 business plan. The version 1 M&C and landscape reviews took place in May and June, which provided a deeper look into annual program budgets that fall under these departments. The board reviewed all aspects of the version 1 budget at their workshop held on June 8th. We then took any changes directed from these meetings and any other staff-initiated changes to produce version 2, which was distributed to the board for review on July 2nd. And that all leads us to today, to review version 3 of the proposed business plan. Any changes resulting from this meeting will be incorporated into the final version of the budget, which the board is set to adopt on September 15th. And on this slide here, we show Third's basic assessment without the GRF portion, and a little bit of history going back to 2023 there. The proposed assessment increases from $647.67 per man or per month in 2026 to $679.84 in 2027, an increase of 5%. Over the 5-year period shown, Third's assessment has increased from $559.62 in 2023 to the proposed $679.84 in 2027, which is an overall increase of approximately 21.5%. So the history also shows a consistent trend with the assessment increasing 5% annually since 2024. This slide shows Third's total basic assessment, which includes both the Third's portion and GRF's contribution as well. The total assessment increases from $909.59 per man or per month in 2026 to $994.13 proposed for 2027. So over the 5-year period shown, the total assessment has increased from $780.93 in 2023 to the $994.13 in 2027, which is about 27% between 2023 and 2027. In here, we kind of show the business plan in a different way, in a more of a table format, but this really summarizes that business plan on a per man or per month basis. And kind of just before we jump right into it, I do want to, on the next slide here, isolate two important pieces of the assessment, and these are surcharges. So these are unique to units with elevators and or units that are part of buildings with the garden villa rec rooms. So first one being elevator operating shows no increase there, and the garden villa rec room fund shows a $2.71 per man or per month increase for those units specifically. This is same table that we saw a couple slides back, but we can jump right into the reserve contributions.
Okay.
And what makes up the change there, and same with projections as well. So as you can see, between 2026 and 2027, it is a $10.99 increase specific to reserve contributions. As you know, and for those of you who may not, Third's reserves are made up of 3 different funds. They're all considered reserve funds. The first one being the replacement reserves fund, the second being elevator replacement fund, and the third one being laundry replacement fund. As you can see on the screen here, the increase is coming from the replacement fund specifically at $804,000, and that is what makes up the $10.99 increase per man or per month in reserves. This slide shows the long-term projection for Third's reserve fund through 2056. So again, this encompasses all 3 of those funds that we just presented on the screen. The fund begins 2027 at approximately 30% funded and reaches about 17% in 2030 as planned reserve expenditures outpace contributions during the early years of the forecast. As reserve funding increases, the funded percentage begins to recover, moving to that medium risk category in 2034. The funding level continues to improve, reaching a peak of approximately 64% in the mid-2040s before declining later in the projection as major reserve expenditures increase. The staff does maintain a target of approximately 30% for reserves, so that it is intentional that it ends 2056 at around 30%. That remains adequate, as history shows us, to keep your balances at. This slide provides a historical and 5-year projected view of Third's replacement reserve fund, so one of the three. For 2027, the reserve assessment increases that $10.99. It generates about $14.1 million in annual reserve funding. The fund is projected to end 2027 at approximately $16.5 million. The balance declines through 2029 as expenditures remain elevated, but as reserve contributions increase, it begins to recover. By 2031, annual reserve funding is projected to reach about $25.6 million, with the ending balance recovering to about $15.9 million. Next slide here shows the elevator replacement fund. For 2027, about $254,000 in elevator-related expenditures are projected, while investment income is expected to contribute approximately $118,000 in this fund. As a result, the fund is projected to end 2027 at about $4.1 million. Over the 5-year projection, the fund remains stable and continues to grow, reaching an ending balance of about $4.7 million by 2031. And lastly, out of the reserve funds is the laundry replacement reserve fund. So that fund itself is expected to end 2027 at a lower amount. This shows $3,600 to address that lower balance projected and to support future replacement needs. The assessment is projected to increase to $4 per man per month beginning in 2028, as opposed to the $2 per man per month that is currently in the 2027 business plan. And next up, we can break out the restricted contributions and those funds that apply under that category. So as you can see on your screen, the restricted funds, there are two of them, one being disaster fund and the other being the unappropriated expenditures fund. So in the first line there, your disaster fund is increasing by $334,000. That comes out to about $4.56 per man per month. The unappropriated expenditures fund is increasing by $275,000. That translates to about $3.75 per man per month. And similar to the three reserve funds that we just spoke about, this slide provides a historical and 5-year projected view of the disaster fund specifically. For 2027, the assessment increases to $33.19 per man per month, generating about $2.4 million in annual funding. And with projected expenditures of about $2 million and investment income of about $172,000, the fund is expected to end 2027 with a balance of about $5.9 million. And for your unappropriated expenditures fund, in 2027, as you can see, this fund is projected to end at just over $7 million. There's no projected change to that $8 per man per month assessment for this fund. Through 2031, the projected ending balance is $8.9 million. This is an illustration of the Garden Villa Rec Room Fund. So as you can see here, the 2027 ending balance is projected at $37,000. You have $137,000 coming in, which translates to about $9.21 per man per month. That does include fiber internet to the 53 buildings that have the garden, that have the Garden Villa Rec Room in them, with expenditures anticipated at $185,000. And all this to circle back to that major changes slide that I spoke on before. This $30.46 that you see here coming from the three major changes are 94% of the total increase. And that is our version 3 presentation. We can now take questions.
Okay, anybody comments? Jim?
Well, I have a few, if I may. What was the reason for the lower premiums on the insurance?
So our risk management team has been working with the brokers on a new program referred to as ART, and that is the justification.
So this is a creative justification that we, not creative, excuse me, this is a new program that we are putting in, not a reduced premiums per se of ordinary.
Reduced premiums, but we're not lowering the insurance levels.
I got you.
So by spreading the risk, we're lowering the premiums.
Second was the revenue increase on miscellaneous. What specifically within that miscellaneous is driving? It's about a 20% increase in revenue.
1 second. So a lot of it has to do with fees that are due for review under resale and lease processing. So it's made up of various fees. There's a number of them, but fees that relate to staff time and whatnot to get these resales through. There are processing fees for it. So there's an anticipated increase there.
Okay. And last but not least, the risk assessment on reserves. Is there a risk? I mean, I see we're in the red for the next 4 or 5 years, and there's obviously an assumption of increase in premiums, in fees. What is the risk? Is there a risk assessment that we typically look at on that?
So it's not necessarily a risk assessment, but your reserves. So your reserve study that is conducted. So at the moment, what we're recommending is, as like alluded to earlier, is that over the next few years, we're anticipating an increase in your reserve contributions because of the fact that you are currently spending about in excess of $20 million per year, but you're funding it about 14 to 15. So the next few years, we're going to be increasing those contributions. And as you increase those contributions, it corrects itself in approximately 2033, according to the plan.
Ed?
Following up on that particular issue, on page 14, slide 14, which has the reserve funds strength calculation that he just referred to, that money does not include the disaster fund or the unappropriated fund. So the reality is that in terms of what Third Mutual has available is far more than the percentage that you currently are projecting for over the next 3 or 4 years, because you don't count another 15, 17, whatever $million that we have sitting in reserve accounts,
So
because they're a
absolutely-
different type.
Correct, absolutely correct. So, and just to clarify, it's sitting in your contingency accounts. So, and that money effectively is your savings account. If the board so wanted to pursue it, you could transfer that money into the reserves and you'd be well above the 30%.
Right, so, but my point is that given our total that we have available, not counting operating, just the reserves of the different accounts, we're actually way above this red percentage mark.
Just for clarification, you have your restricted and you have your reserves. But if you were to combine your restricted into your reserves, then your statement
Yeah.
is true.
Okay, that's my point there. Okay? And that actually was my real main question. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask a question. I'm sure I asked this before and I don't remember. So the replacement reserves, comparing 27 and 26, our expenditures are up from 12 million up to 20 million. So can you just like highlight why it's gone up 67%, $8 million year over year?
Sure. Give me one moment.
Sure. Some of the larger increases that we've had over the past few years has been back in 2025, way back in 2025, we were at reserve contributions of $335,000, whereas in 2026 and 27, we're looking at 1.5. Copper line remediation in 2025, we were actuals at $200,000. In 26 and 27, we're about $1 million apiece. Roofs has gone up by about $500,000 or about 25%. Building structures, back in 24, we were at 2.4 million and we've increased that to 3.7. Lastly, paint program was at 1.5 a few years back and we've gone up to almost $2 million in 2027. So it's broken out based on various programs at the recommendation of staff and the approval by the board. So those are the largest of your increases there contributing to your reserve expenditures.
Okay. Let's see. What else do I have? So a lot of the increases have, correct me if I'm wrong, have to do with staffing and salaries and wherever they fall within the various expenses. But we're still anticipating hiring staff. We're budgeting for more positions, right? But we have to hire staff to do a lot of these things?
So we are always hiring where we need to, but as far as the budget goes, between 26 and 2027, there is essentially no change. As far as the budget is speaking. We account for the fact that although we may be budgeting for a full head count, in reality, we don't ever get a full head count. So we account for that in the budget via that factor there, that difference.
Okay, and then I noticed that we have an increase in salaries, and that's based on increases. Are the increases like across the board? Like, in particular, the lower paid people. I think that's where we have the bigger problem with turnover.
Correct.
What are we doing as far as pay schedules for the lower paid people?
Sure. So what we've done, ultimately, if you look at your increase year over year, I want to say it's about 4.5%. We are providing our staff in 2027 a 3.5% increase. And that's going to be depending upon, not everyone's going to get that 3.5, it's dependent upon performance. But above and beyond that, we've budgeted funds to identify select individuals that need salary increases given the fact that minimum wage is increasing, given the fact that they're not really comparable to market. So we specially targeted certain individuals. Once this budget is approved, then beginning in January, we'll start allocating those monies.
Okay, because I hate to lose good people, because they make more money flipping burgers kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, and other than that, well, let's just start. Okay. Did you have something?
I will, but I wasn't in line yet.
Oh, I thought you, go ahead, Bertha.
Okay. Thank you. You're on the clock. Thank you.
Okay. Look at the numbers. We'll look for, for the basic assessment for Third Mutual, $32 is about smidge under 5%. And then For the GRF is about 20%, which overall, we are under 10% for third mutual. I have no problem with that. All I want to ask, we requested that the budget reflect, especially for the dry rot and maintenance, to be enough to cover so we don't have during the year to do special, request. Is that done? Are we confident that we put enough in the budget for the dry rot? Because previously it was told that in the previous years we cut the budget because of that, and then we have to come back and ask for more money. We said, please don't put in the budget what is needed. I just want to make sure that this budget reflect the true budget for dry rot. So during the year, we don't have to keep, doing the supplemental.
Understood.
Is that true?
So we've increased the building structures budget. Give me a moment while I turn to that page. And then Manuel was able to offer to come down to address any questions, so I have texted him asking him to come on down to speak to that specific question.
I just want to make sure that, we allocated enough money so we don't have to go through supplement.
Sure. So in the 27 plan, we've increased the increased the allocation for building structures about $900,000.
Correct.
Can I say with confidence that you will have no supplemental appropriations? I'm not comfortable saying that specifically, given the fact that if the
Have
board
we
wishes.
increased that 900,000 in the budget?
So that is the increase from the 26 plan. So
Right now is at what?
952.
Well, I
So-
don't think that's sufficient.
So right now, the 2026 budget is 3.1 million, 2027 is
Exact,
proposed
okay.
at 4 million.
Yeah, now it's increased from 900,000. And what degree of, certainty we have that would cover it? Because 2026, we're talking about $1 million addition, a supplement. We don't want to go that through 2027 to have $1 million supplement. It's not good budgeting. Is this budget, what is the degree of, certainty that we might have addition? I understand supplement, it comes, but I don't want it to be 50% or 100% of the budget that we have to supplement.
Sure.
What degree of certainty we have?
We have Ian online. Ian, are you comfortable addressing some of his comments?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much. So we can never say for certain that this is going to 100% cover you. For what we have planned, this is the budget that is needed. However, if we are finding more dry rot as the program moves along, or by service request, we find more and more dry rot, and there's not enough money to cover that, we have no option but to come back to the board and ask for a supplemental for that work as it's found.
Mr. Chair?
Based on the historical data, what level of certainty we have that we put enough money in the budget for 2027? I just want to know, because as I said, the degree of, we understand supplement, but we want to make sure that we are not talking about 50%, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Manuel here that can give some details
Can you help
in
us,
terms
Manuel,
of.
see what?
So his question is, what level of confidence do we have that we put in enough in building structures to accommodate dry rot, other expenses that may come through? So we shared that we've increased it by $900,000, 26 compared to 27. And then Ian just mentioned that we never know exactly how much dry rot we're going to find when we open walls.
And I didn't ask for the exact.
Of course, of course.
So that's correct. We did increase our budget allocation for dry rot in 2027. I believe it was 436,000 is what we increased it to. So in 2026, we budgeted 968,000. We've increased that by an additional 432,000 for 2027. And based on what we're seeing in the field right now, we think that's a sufficient number. But as Mr. Barnett indicated, until we start tearing buildings apart, we don't really know for sure.
Okay. Now, on disaster fund.
No, wait. Finish, let him.
Okay. Yeah,
We
along
both have
the-
questions about this.
Oh, the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Along the lines of dry rot, obviously that's an ongoing issue just because of the age. And I just want to distinguish between allocations of reserve versus current spending, because we're going into the reserves with the dry rots. And dry rot will continue to pop up. So I want to understand how that's being considered in the reserves. Now, I do know just by history, I think from an allocation perspective, last year, we reduced the request that the staff came in with. And so we reduced it by almost the amount that we actually had to replace this year. So it was part of board decision last year that reduced the allocation that we had for 2026. So basically, they requested that it be returned to the original request, and then now in 2027, they're taking it up again based on what they've seen. So I guess my question is, has this been adequately thought about in the reserve calculation?
Short answer, yes. So this amount that you see, that $432,000 increase that Manuel was just speaking on is included in the reserve study. So those funds altogether are incorporated in there, and the study accounts for it.
So that's 2027
Correct.
and beyond.
So no. In beyond 2027, right now it comes down to, so I can say that in 2031 it shows 788,000
Okay.
for that same.
Yeah. I mean, we can't opine on the
Sure.
number. I'm just saying, is it a consideration?
Sure.
Because it's not going to go away.
Correct.
This is really for Manuel. Manuel, you just said that we had a $968,000 budget last year. Just recently, you came before M&C and requested, well, Guy did, an additional $600,000 in allocation specifically for dry rot, taking us up to $1.5, almost $1.6 million. At that point, we asked the question, is this the end of the request for this year? And the answer was, we may be back again for another $300 and some odd $1,000. And actually, then they you guys kind of hedged, if I remember correctly, and said, well, it may not actually occur in this calendar year. It may occur at the very beginning of the next calendar year. But the end result is that if you come back for another 300,000, now we've doubled that 968,000 to 1.8 million to start with. You have not allocated that amount for 27. You've allocated only the 968 plus the 430 something, I believe, that you just referred to, which would make it 1.3 when we expect to spend, or 1.4 when we expect to spend 1.8 this year. Does that, I mean, goes to the question of what both Reza and Jim are asking. Is there enough? Because again, we don't want to hit supplemental appropriations unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and we wouldn't ask for a supplemental unless it was absolutely necessary. But we also don't want to base our budget projections on one-year anomalies. So what we do is we look at the last 3 years, we see what we spent over the last 3 years, we take into account what we're spending, how it's trending during the current year, and then we use that to make a recommendation for budget.
Okay.
If the board wanted to be overly conservative, you could add another 300,000-400,000 to it. We obviously wouldn't spend it unless we need it. But then we start, the only reason we're not recommending it is then we have nothing to base that on, no factual data to base that on.
Okay, thank you.
So the dry rot, that's reserve monies?
Correct. Yeah.
So then our projection of what we'll have in reserves is going to be less than
If-
what we're showing.
If we go to the supplement.
If, okay, fine.
It's a if, yeah. That's why I'm asking the question. I want
Yeah.
to see, how much jeopardy we have under, that's what I was going to go to the next question.
I think you can pretty much count on supplemental appropriations. Yes.
Basically, still for manual, but not on dry rot. A few years ago, the paint company that we used asked us why we were painting every 10 years when their paint was warranted for 15. And I don't know that we have caught up yet with things, but I think I'm looking at what looks like a 9% increase in paint. And I'm wondering, are we seeing the benefits of slowing that down? And again, we didn't slow it down because we were trying, we love saving money, but we did it because the paint company said our paint is that good. So I'm just curious as to the 9% increase, or have we just not seen the benefits of slowing this down yet?
Oh, we've seen the benefits.
Yeah, so one of the benefits at the time that decision was made, I think back in 2021, was that we were able to reduce the number of full-time positions in that work center. So that was one of the benefits, thereby lowering our labor cost. I think the 9% increase you see now is completely attributable to labor and materials cost. Some outside services, but not because of the change in the schedule.
Okay, so some of the benefit of that came in different categories,
Right.
apparently, like labor.
Well, where the benefit really came originally, going from 10 years to 15 years, meant that we would schedule less buildings
Right.
per year, and we anticipated about $1 million a year in savings at that point in time. And that's actually, I think, been coming true.
And that was just why my question of, for paint, 9%. I just,
Yeah, we went to the paint company, they didn't come to us. We went to them and said, because we had no failures at the 10 years. And we said, well, if we're not having any failures at the 10 years, would you warranty the paint for 15? And they came back in writing and said, yes, we'll warranty it for 15 years, and we still haven't had any failures.
Just following that with the paint, when we have dry rot, when we have more building comes up for the dry rot, which, go to the supplement, is that also covered on the paint side or not? Or that's separate, totally separate?
Yeah, no, that would not be a paint warranty item. Typically, that's happening because moisture is getting into the membrane through some other area.
No, but do we do the paint out of cycle for those buildings?
If we go in and repair some dry rot on a building that's not part of the paint program, yes. We paint over the area that we replace.
Oh, not the whole
We don't
thing.
paint the whole building.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So with all of that, we have got all of those, for the dry rot and everything in the reserve. And, if the supplement comes, then it's going to impact the reserve. In the disaster fund, we have allocated for 2027, or we estimating about $1.92 million. Can we break that down? What is that for? What we expecting to be in the disaster fund?
So disaster fund, excuse me, my mic wasn't on. The disaster fund for third is primarily spent for moisture intrusion events, so damage restoration related items.
Is
So-
the same thing at dry rot? Pretty much?
Partly, yes.
So we have here $2 million, or whatever part of it is, for the dry rot, and we put $1.5 million in the budget. That kind of covers us? Somebody with this higher certainty say, yeah, between the disaster fund and the budget, we should be okay. Is that correct? Is that $2 million part of that dry rot also?
No.
Because
So-
if that's it, we are double dipping, we're dipping into the, then what is the $2 million there?
So maybe I can invite Manuel up to explain the difference specifically between the two.
Yeah,
but-
what is the $2 million is allocated for?
Sure. Part of that $2 million from the expenses is having to do the rain leaks, plumbing stoppages. Those are the largest components of the $2 million. So beyond the actual structural repair, so having to do the.
Is that not with the, with the epoxy lining or anything? Because all of those things, we have separate project. And now we have $2 million, which is a good chunk of money in the disaster fund. So we're expecting a lot more.
So it's
of
been
those?
consistent over the past couple of years. You've had these funds in place for some time now. I'm going back all the way to 2023. It's been a very similar amount coming out of the disaster fund. So
I'm trying to understand how we're balancing those.
Of
You know,
course.
we put, we're getting some from the, from the reserve, and then we have a couple of million in disaster fund, and we have emergency. All of those adds up. Is that collectively part of the budget, or?
yes. So so for 2027, you're including in your disaster fund about $1.8 million. So that in combination of the funds that you have coming out of your reserve funds, so we feel is adequate to handle all the repairs and the fixes that need to be taken care of in 2027. Again, repeating ourselves, we clearly, if something comes up and we need to open up a wall and do more work, then we're going to need to come back with a supplemental.
Is it, a little bit out of my league here because it's finance. Is it not accurate that the money in the other fund, I don't think if it's reserve or operating, that's, in layman's terms, that's to go fix the leak, stop the leak, and then the disaster fund is used for the restoration part? That's what I thought it was, but I could be wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
While
You
you're
go ahead.
looking.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, probably asked this before. So we got the replacement reserve fund, which at the end of this year is gonna be 22.7 million projected. Then we've got the disaster fund, which is projected out to be 5.2 million, let's say, at the end of this year. Then we have the unappropriated funds, which is projected to be 6.5 million. Do we have any kind of breakdown of what those funds represent, or is it just kind of, hate to
With a bucket.
use a bad word, like just a general come as they may as things come up? Do we have any idea, like, we have this amount that we set aside for roof cycle and painting or whatever on the cycle? Do we have any kind of breakdown?
Yes, we do.
That's good, great.
So they are treated as individual funds, and there are items and programs budgeted out of each of those funds.
Is that available to see?
Correct. So it's actually presented on a monthly basis in the finance committee meetings. On the expenditures reports that we show, it does break out each fund.
As opposed to what we're spending it on, what the total funds that are, 6.5 and 5.5 and 22, we're looking at 34 million, let's say, between the three. That 34 million that's sitting there in all the funds, what do we anticipate that money is going to be used for? As opposed to, I'm not concerned so much about, we're spending 12 million this year. But at the end of the year, we still have 22 million sitting in the replacement reserves. What does that 22 million represent?
So looking on screen, it represents, from a reserve perspective, that you're 30% funded for your reserves. So that money is going to be set aside. It's not specifically identified that we take 30% of the $20 million and set aside for this project and that project. It's a pool of money that's going to be used for your future projects. And our target is, our staff's recommendation is to maintain a 30%. So maintaining you in this ELO status. For a brief time, you're gonna be kicked down into the red, but you're still at $20 million or above, so you still have plenty of funding. With regards to the other question having to do with your disaster fund and your unappropriated, the disaster fund, we have a plan for those funds. So there's programs that are being discussed that will be brought before the finance committee and the board at a future time having to do with insurance. So, and then there's then there's the unappropriated expenditure fund, which is effectively your savings account. So you do have money being withdrawn from that account, which Blake mentioned a moment ago, having to do with the repairs of the leaks and such. But do we have a full plan for the remaining $5 million? No, but we want to make certain you have adequate savings in your account in case a expenditure does come up that requires extensive spending, such as potentially you may have landscaping that may come up in a few years. If that SB 1527 were to come about, you have money sitting aside to where you won't need to dramatically increase your assessments. You have a savings account set aside to accommodate.
Rob?
Two things. One, you touched on one, was the insurance. Because yes, we have, from my perspective, about $2.4 million in the disaster account that's specifically, in my mind, going to be allocated for creating the captive when we get to $5 million at the end of the next 3 years. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we are going to have a large outlay of money over the next 3 to 5 years, specifically for Zone 0. So we're going to have to somehow build that idea in once we have the plan that Kurt's going to be working on with the city, grant money that we're supposed to be getting. We're supposed to be doing a design for all of that, and then we'll be able to cost out what it's going to be for the next 3 to 5 years, and that's where we're going to be needing money as well.
Along those lines, that's my question. If we have, okay, just pooling it all together, $34 million, and we know we're gonna, in the next 3 years or 4 years, spending X amount of dollars on Zone 0 related things, and then we have other project, the insurance matter, we have a chunk of money coming out for that. Do we know, or do we have any kind of plans as to, okay, next year, this number of homes need such and such done to it, and the following year, such, you know, certain number of homes, and then this landscaping, we need to do this project, you know, irrigation or whatever it is, the following year. As these chunks of money are coming out, you're saying 30% now, which is going down. Do we know there's going to be enough funds for all these different uses? I understand it's 30% and anticipated whatever, but knowing that there's huge chunks of money coming out for these two specific items, are we going to be looking in a couple of years at a special assessment because we took out too much money for the regular reserve expenses that are ongoing every single year?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Specifically for special assessments, I don't feel you're anywhere near risk of a special assessment. So to answer the question, if we're going to be pulling large sums of money out to handle these projects, the Zone 0, the various other special insurance programs, that's why you have them carved out into separate funds. You have money set aside into your unappropriated expenditure fund. You have money set aside into your disaster fund. What you have already in your reserve fund, those are just your standard programs. So Manuel, Kurt, and all the teams involved with preparing the budgets, they have a plan for what buildings, how many buildings are going to be done in the next few years. So to the point, using paint as an example, they have a schedule in terms of what's going to be done and when.
Okay. Whoa. Jim, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I know we have a reserve specialist come in and look at the reserves. And I know because it is a specialist, we don't, the residents don't have access to that because it's a vendor. Would it be beneficial for the board to actually have that assessment present it to us in closed session so that we can have a chance to understand it and how it fits into our complete risk assessment. I mean, I'm looking at, we go by experience, we go by expectation for the next 5 years, and then we go by an estimate for the next 30, and I get that. But there's a risk assessment that we see in terms of yellow, red, green. And that's an expert's assessment. I think it would be beneficial if we understood that coming from a bottoms up, and we can ask questions about, did you consider this, did you consider that, et cetera, et cetera. Because right now, I mean, I thought about the zone 0, and I know it wasn't in there. And I also thought about something that I guess that's not in the calculation, which was, or at least I don't think it was, which was all of the funds. Because it looks like we're talking about reserve with all of these special funds included, and then when I look at the piece of paper, I don't think all of the funds are included in that reserve calculation. Is that, am I stating that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
So once again,
So we're not seeing the total picture by looking at this.
No, you are. So in the reserve study, it does encompass all 3 funds.
The
So-
reserve study does.
Correct.
But when we see it separately here, we're carving out just this thing that we call reserve, not disaster fund, or are we looking at the total piece?
We are looking at the total picture.
Okay.
We presented it in a way where we separated out all the funds and treated them individually.
Yeah.
But you are seeing the full picture.
So each one is rated in terms of risk profile.
let me hold on for just 1 second.
Well, let me-
So clarification. So when we're talking about 3 funds, so we have 3 reserve funds.
Correct.
So, but what he's referring to is reserve, the disaster, unappropriated.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. To me, it's
Yeah.
My
so-
apologies.
not that they
Yeah,
all.
so
yeah.
let's just talk in terms of one reserve fund. Even though there's the elevator reserve, there's the garden villa, let's just talk about one reserve.
I'm not talking about that one.
Correct. Let's just talk about
those are
reserves in
carve-outs.
general.
We got disaster, we got contingency, we got
Correct.
quote, reserve. We've got several funds
Correct.
that are not in the operating fund. That I'll call them savings accounts for various projected activities or unanticipated activities.
Yep.
And at some point, it becomes an estimate, say after 5 years. And in the early 1, 2, 3, 5 years, say, there's a definite estimate of what we think we're gonna have to do. But after that, it becomes more of a estimate, if you will, based on
course.
projection and a whole bunch of other things that the reserve specialist has some knowledge or some insight on. Then we depend on that to make sure that we've got enough. I'm just trying to figure out how we put that all together and project based on what we know and understand it better.
Yeah. So let me go back and just to clarify just something that the two of us got done saying a second ago. When it comes to the reserve study and you had the colorful chart, the reds and the yellows, so that is just the reserve fund. So, and we have about you have $25 to $6 million. That funding does not include the additional funds that you have sitting on screen of $7 million plus another 5 elsewhere. That was to President Muchnick's comment a moment ago. If you were to add all the disaster, the unappropriated into that reserve fund, you have plenty of money for the next 5 years. So there's zero risk of a special assessment unless there's a catastrophic meteor or whatever. So, but you have a very strong balance sheet in terms of your overall funding.
Can we see that assessment? See, that's your assessment. Not saying I
You mean the
disagree with it.
reserve study?
The reserve study, and you just combined all 3 funds. When you say, hey, when we combine all 3 funds, we're in great shape. Yet I'm looking at red for the next 5 years. I'm not sure how that computes in my mind.
Okay, keep them separate. Keep them separate. That's the reason why we have separate funds. Don't include the unappropriated and the.
Technically,
reserves.
I know how that works.
Okay.
I'm saying you keep talking about all of the funds, and yet when we look at it, we're just seeing one segment of that fund, and that one segment going into red doesn't give us doesn't give me a warm, comfortable feeling for the next 5 years, which we can estimate better, which we can expect better than we can, as opposed to estimate. I realize 30 years, nobody knows. 5, we kind of have an idea of some of the things coming up. So that reserve specialist, that one reserve account, which you want to isolate, when you give us the warm, comfortable feeling, you're including all 3 or 4 different accounts. So
Just the one.
just the one. But then
Just
I'm
the one-
looking at.
Just the one.
Okay, but I'm looking at red, and I know that doesn't include the, with zone 0, okay? So I'm looking at even more red, and I don't see the numbers that match that.
And you won't see it.
Well, I get that. And my question is, why won't I see it?
Because when it gets reported here, it's just the one fund. That's the way it's the standard reporting process. What you're asking is what I already mentioned earlier, which was the true picture is that we have about, as Howard calculated,
understand.
34 million.
Well, that's what I'm trying to bring
So
out,
the reality is, if you
Mr.
look at the percentages and you see if we had 34 million, we'd really be up around 42%. So we're really okay.
Okay, okay,
I want to see that, that's what I'm saying.
okay,
You've
good.
made that clear.
Did you have something to say?
Yes, sir. This, changing the subject, getting out of the funds and repeat it to death. I'm looking at the elevator replacement reserve fund. Every year, we're just doing the maintenance right now. These are the maintenance costs, right? What is the lifespan of the elevator, and when it needs to be replaced? What is the cost? Do we have enough money in there for replacement? Because it says replacement, but right now all we're doing is maintenance. I haven't seen any replacement cost in here. Is that correct, or I'm wrong?
And that's not, well, that's partially correct. We do
Okay.
annual maintenance, but we also fund 2 or 3 complete replacement of all the mechanisms. So
Oh,
I think,
all
I
the
think we,
mechanism,
I
not the
think
whole
we,
unit?
well, we'll do the cab if it needs it, if it's worn out.
Okay.
You know, we'll replace the panels, we'll replace whatever might be damaged, broken, but primarily we're replacing the mechanisms, all the mechanical components of it. And the board has, for the last 2 or 3 years, budgeted to do 2 or 3, depending on what the lifespan is of the units.
And the 250,000 a year is sufficient for those
For
kind
3
of activities?
mechanical replacements, yes.
Okay.
And miscellaneous
things are
cab
not-
upgrades if
They
needed.
don't have expiration date, these units? That you have to get brand-new units, or, I'm trying to
So
understand.
the mechanical replacements, in essence, gives you a brand-new unit. We're not repairing, we're replacing all
I
of the
don't,
mechanical.
that's what I'm asking, I don't know. I don't know if you need, because when I look at the arms at the gates, you know, when it goes bad, we have to go buy another one, and we have to bring it from China, and we have to, you know, we have to wait about 6 months to get it from China. Are we at any, you know, junction on these elevators that they're gonna go out of business, and we have to replace totally a unit? Do we have enough money? Do we have enough? I just want to make sure that these 3-story buildings depends on these.
Right, so the purpose of replacing the mechanical components proactively is so that they are not in danger of failing. So we're always keeping the units in top condition so that they don't fail.
All right. I just want to make sure that we're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments from the board here? There
Go to the
being none.
audience.
Anybody have any comments from out there? Is,
Ro, do you want to say something?
Come to the thing and ask a question. Come, bro. Don't be shy.
Oh, it's not shy. I'm not shy.
I know you're not.
I'm just trying to be clear on things that we have questions about as the GVA, Gardenville Association. And I know that Stuart is online, is he?
yes.
Yeah, I think he knows more than I do. How about that? Where he has questions, I have some questions, but I think a lot of them have been answered regarding the elevators. And there was an increase in the fee to $9.21 for the recreation room from $6. And what does that exactly include? Because I know that we're coming in with Ting, and that was supposed to be like $1.76 or something per unit per month. So what's the rest of it?
So most of it is due to the fiber internet that you just said. And then additionally, to recoup some of the planned expenditures. So I believe there's some flooring replacement that is planned for Garden Villas at some, I don't specifically know where, but because those expenses in the Garden Villa Fund has risen, that contribution matches it. So that's in addition to the fiber internet at $1.71.
Okay.
May I speak?
Sorry?
May I speak?
Stuart,
No,
please.
only one of you can speak at a time, so either let Ro finish or let Ro turn it over to you.
Okay, I turn it over to Stuart.
All right, thank you. We have a separate committee, which is for the rec rooms. And that committee very carefully creates a budget every year. And I'm having difficulty understanding why the budget you're presenting here is different than the one that committee has approved.
And as a point of clarification, are you referring to the planned expenditures or the fund contribution itself?
Both.
So my apologies, I don't have specifics on the flooring. I can invite Manuel Gomez up for that aspect of it. That's the planned expenditure side of it, and then I can speak to the contribution.
So my understanding is there's about $26,000 included for monthly internet service, 26,000,
Just north of 25, yes.
and just under 17 for replacing the carpeting in 6 of the rec rooms. That's primarily the increase for next year.
Thank you.
That was presented to the committee, but I think there's a discrepancy maybe on the calculation of the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
So we're looking at, in 26, 95,000 of expenditures, right? We're adding
Correct.
26,000 for Western Ting or whatever.
Yes.
Ting.
And then we're adding how much for the?
17.
About 17,000.
So that's 42, that's 137. So I guess Stuart's question would be, what's the other?
No, actually, my
47,000.
question is bigger than that. The flooring replacement is built into the budget for the year already.
Correct.
And that budget is based on keeping the same monthly assessment plus the cost for Ting. There's no need for additional money to pay for the flooring. It was already in the budget.
Sure. So if we can see on our screens here, this is the fund projection for Garden Villas. So as you can see, in 2027, if we don't account for that $1.71 for fiber internet, that additional per man or per month contribution, we won't be able to nearly cover the $185,000 in planned expenditures for 2027. So it already, for the year 2027, it's already running a deficit intentionally with $185,000 in expenditures and $137,000 coming in. So if we were to pull that $1.71 out, I can do the math, but it would only further.
26,000.
Thank you. So, well, we can do it right here. So 2027 plans to end the year at 37,000. If we pulled that 26 out, you're only going to have 11,000 remaining in the fund.
Okay, so
So-
I'm questioning where your figures are coming from.
Okay.
So either the figures that were presented to the meeting that we have of the committee are incorrect, or your figures are incorrect. Which is it?
So I can say that the majority of the increase, roughly 47,000, is coming from those two items that we just spoke on. So the
That's
expense.
not my question.
Sure.
So this is really difficult. We are presented with a budget.
Mm-hmm.
We're presented with a budget that includes projected future costs.
Sure.
Right now are not consistent with the budget we were presented. You have added a cost for the flooring, which was already in the budget that we had for 2027. You're doubling it. You're charging us twice for it.
So you are mentioning 2027. I want to say that you are correct in that the flooring monies is there in 2027
Right.
but nowhere else. So it's included in 2027.
Paul, we've got
Can
projections
I try to help
for
out
years
here?
into the future.
Stuart,
Yep.
1 second. Okay, the last 3 years, let's look at it this way. The last 3 years, we spent roughly 100,000 of expenditures. So the question is, what is in that recurring 100,000 every year? Because to that 100,000, we have added another 90,000 for 2027. And I think if I'm listening correctly, that 17,000 is already included every year in the 100,000. So to include it again, we're overstating the increase by 17.
Double dipping.
Everybody understands the 26,000 increase for Ting.
Yes.
But if I'm hearing correctly, the question is, why isn't the expenditures for 2027 121,000? The 95 plus 26. And if that was the case, there wouldn't be a $2.71 increase in the dues.
That is correct.
Lucky guess.
You're good.
And we go through this every year. This is the same discussion every year.
Wait.
The budget
Checking the
that,
number.
Wait, Jim,
the budget
hold on
that
a
is
second.
presented, budget that is-
Stuart, they're gonna
Yeah, I'm
check the
sorry.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yes. So
They're gonna check them.
That's
They have
what I was-
honchos powwowing back there.
That's what I was going to suggest, is because, see, I recall the ending balance being, during the Garden Villa Association, I recall the ending balance being that. I recall the expenditures, but I don't recall the per man or per month being that number. So there may have been, I think as Manuel suggested, there may have been a calculation.
Wait. are
We
you
gotta
s-
wait and see what they come up with.
Wait, Jim, you're saying as a member of the Garden Villa Recreation Committee, you remember the 184,000 in expenditures?
I remember the 36.
The 36?
Yeah, and I remember, I remember the 36.
Okay.
So I
that's-
think this is a somewhat of a numerical balance situation where one of the numbers.
All right, so they've got to go back and figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
we absolutely will. So we'll
Yeah.
make sure everything tick and ties, go back and double check and make sure that we can provide clarification
Yes,
as
Stuart,
to
if he has anything else.
Stuart's
Yes,
question.
Stuart, if he has anything else.
Stuart, do you have anything else? And it's-
Yes, one other thing. But before we finish up on this, I think this should appropriately be brought to the Rec Room Committee for review before it goes forward. Because it's not just 2027, it's also the future years that look pretty crazy to me. So we have a mechanism here for this. This is not general budget money. This is money specifically that's charged just to those people who live in buildings that have the rec rooms, and there is a mechanism for handling the budget, which this is not following.
Can you put up the programs report? I do think this is just a matter of how it's being presented, and not so much that there's something inaccurate about it. If you'll, I don't know what page it's on, but the Garden Villa Rec Room budget for 2026 is $136,500. budget for 2027 is 184,500. The difference is that 48,000.
26,000 for,
Right. So if you look at the, where is it? There you go, numbers at the bottom there. You can see the budget for 2026 is 135 and change. The budget for 127 is the increase for the internet and the 6 rooms that are getting new carpeting. I think where maybe we have a disconnect is on how that gets calculated back to the per manor, per month assessment, and we can work with finance on making sure that that's being done correctly. But the budget numbers are correct.
I think the actual question being asked is, aren't there carpets being replaced every year? Which is included in the base 100,000 for the past 3 years. That's the question.
Or the number of carpeting
That's
that's
the-
been
that's-
replaced that increased for the 2027.
Well, that's the first question. What's the difference? Are we going from 3 carpets being replaced to
6 or
6,
7,
to 9?
We'll
Okay.
get those details and present them to you.
And then if, let's say that 17,000 for carpet replacement is correct, then you look at this and you say, you take the 95,000 last year, you add 17 for the carpeting, add 26, and there's still another $47,000 of expenses unaccounted for, which just by chance happens to be the increase in the contribution.
So there are other things planned in that fund besides
That's what
the 2.
they're asking.
Correct.
What is it?
Sure. So I just run down a little list here. There's plumbing service in interior garden villas. There's recreation room refurbishments, range installations, microwave installations, sink installations, things of that nature. That makes up the
None
difference.
of those happened in prior years.
They did. Some of which have increased, but they did. It's nothing new.
If they did, that should be part of that.
If they were
95,000.
already there, why are they in there again in the 47,000 increase?
Yeah.
That's the question.
So
Somebody
yeah.
needs, don't give an answer
Sure.
yet.
Look at the
Somebody needs to go, because it's not going to affect the overall budget.
Sure.
This is specific to garden villas. If there's a doubling up of some expenses, then maybe there doesn't have to be an increase of dues of $2.71, because we're only adding more to cover the increases over here. So that's what we need to do before this whole budget is approved, is figure out what makes up that 184,000 as compared to the 95,000 the year before.
But remember, the $2 plus addition, $1 is for the internet, so it's not the whole thing.
We get that.
Just one and a.
Everybody gets that. It's the $26,000 we have to account for.
Yeah, that needs to be.
But if that's all there is, that's really a difference year to year,
Then there is dollar
then
something more. that is-
there's something in there that shouldn't be in there. And it's specific to garden villas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So repeating it, we'll get back to you. The real difference is on the slide that showed the 96. The full budget for 26 was $136,000.
So that
the
number is
96,
incorrect?
the 96 that we included was correct, but that's a projection for year end. So the real question is, what did we take out of the 26 budget? The difference between the $96,000 that we're projecting for 26 versus the full budget of 136. Regardless, we'll get back to you with both answers.
Yeah,
The
let's
full
start
26
with,
and
what is the
27.
95? And then what are we adding to get up to 185?
Correct. So we have that really
And
available.
then they
just
could
not for the
decide,
screen.
we can all decide, do you want to spend that extra 90,000? Or is it necessary? Okay? Okay. Let's see, anything else
Stuart had
anybody
one
has to
other,
say?
Stuart had one other thing.
He does?
He does.
Okay.
Thank you. We thank you for the money that's being included in the budget for getting ready for the storms coming up and cleaning all the drains in the 3-story buildings. And but there were a couple of other requests that were made regarding the study about the water intrusion and underground parking. And so just like to ask that that be included in the next M&C committee meeting as part of the agenda, please.
That was already included for 2027. Mr. Gomez?
Don't sit so far away.
Yeah, stay close.
So at the direction of the committee, and I believe with the concurrence of the board,
Yeah.
we added 113,000 to the, for the drain cleaning.
Correct.
And we included 280,000 for the weep screed installations, which I think covers about 10 or 11 buildings. Those were the only two items that the committee and the board asked us to put in. And they are included.
That answer your question?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks. I think we did, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? None up here? Okay. That being the case, and pending a review of the Garden Villa matters, do I hear a motion to bring this up to the board for?
So moved.
Second, Bill.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I guess we'll talk about this at the board meeting. And now, director's comments. Jim?
Let me thank staff for all the work they've done on this. We asked a lot of deep questions. I'm sure the answers were, thank you for the answers. I think there's more work to be done on a lot of the analysis for understanding, especially with the reserve, understanding how it's formed. It doesn't impact my decision to move forward with the budget. I just like to understand it, maybe us to understand it better on an ongoing basis.
Donna?
No additional comments.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that staff done to give this budget. Personally, I think you guys done a decent job.
Decent, thank you very much. Backhanded compliment.
And I think the proof is in the pudding when it comes to performance through the 2027. As I said, I always have the supplement is the one that kind of gets me, and I hope that we done better job this year so we can stay with the budget. I hope you're wrong. And I think we can stay with the budget. I appreciate, it looks good, actually, It's a good budget.
Ruth?
Thank you. No more comment.
Well, I want to thank the staff. We asked the staff to try to work with a 5% increase because we're interested in our members being able to anticipate. Last year was a 5% increase. The year before was a 5% increase. This coming year is a 5% increase. The goal of the board is to try to, as best as possible, stay around that figure as we move forward. So I appreciate the work that the staff has done, the finance committee people, finance division people have done to bring it in at that dollar amount. So thank you.
Mr. President, can you say why 5% is good? Explain it so people understand why we say 5%.
Why don't you do that for me?
Well, you are a troublemaker.
No, I just want to make sure people understand because we're talking about the, inflation and the, cost of living adjustment, and 5% is very reasonable if we can stay within that, and that's why we basing on 5.
Right.
It's not we didn't pull it out of the air saying, oh, it's 5%, because that doesn't make sense. We working with the inflation and the COLA in order to be within that range so people understand. If they get Social Security, that's where they.
All right, thank you
Thank you.
for the help.
Anybody out there have anything they'd like to share with the viewing audience? Okay. And on that note, thank you for all the hard work on the budgeting. I appreciate how involved it is and how much time it takes. and then have to put up with us makes it so much the better. And other than that, I think we've taken care of business, and this meeting is adjourned. Pretty good, huh?